Yeah, it's a good question. So, how was I introduced to Hume? I think probably I was first introduced to Hume by encountering his statue on the Royal Mile in Edinburgh. As an undergraduate at Edinburgh University, I went there in the early 90s to study engineering. So, had very little interest or exposure to philosophical thinking at that time. That came later, really, in my journey. So I knew of Hume as a philosopher, as a Scottish Enlightenment thinker. In fact, there's a building in the university where the philosophy department is housed, the David Hume building, obviously named after him. So he's seen as something of a hero figure in the philosophy school, I guess, at Edinburgh University. But really, it was just a name. I couldn't say that I was particularly familiar with his philosophy at that time. It
Hmm.
was only later as I became interested in Christian apologetics, and that's a story in itself, but I won't tell that whole story. But I became interested in Christian apologetics and responding to objections, different kinds of objections to Christian claims. And you can't get very far in Christian apologetics without encountering the influence of Hume, either directly or indirectly. In fact, many of the objections I think that we encounter to the Christian faith today are Humean objections, or at least have their root in Hume's thought, even though most people don't realize it. In other words, his influence is often indirect rather than direct.